Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, and our next guest up, our intrepid reporter, Marc Z with a Marc Z Moment. Welcome, Marc.
John, good to see you. Happy holidays. Hope all
Thank
is
you.
well.
Best to you. So,
Thank you
you
very
always
much.
bring us topical and timely things happening in the world of employment and recruitment. What's on your mind for today?
Well, in the spirit of the new year, one of the big topics that is gathering more steam across the different states and is going to be talked about in Massachusetts is all about pay transparency, and it's very important in terms of the role that somebody's interviewing for. You might see it now if it's a posted job, employers are giving salary ranges. It's no longer just dependent on experience. And also the employers will have to, it's again, we've talked about it on the show before, you pay according to the job, not what the person will take. And so that's what's a big topic. It's a lot of states are looking at, and a lot of states like New York and California regularly implementing this practice in the employment space.
That's pretty interesting. I would see that being a significant challenge for smaller businesses that have no context on, what the outside world may be paying.
Right.
So is part of the impetus that I understand it from an employer slash recruiter perspective, the need to have that transparency. But I guess the question that comes to mind is how do you make that determination? If you've got 12 employees and they're all in different roles, is that incumbent upon an employer to understand what a comparable job is in a completely unrelated field in a similar size company? Or you know where I'm going here? It's kind of a complicated thing. I understand the notion of transparency, but how do you make sure that you're in the universe?
Well, first of all, what a lot of the employers do is they do research in terms of what the role would typically pay for, in terms of what the role would continually have in terms of pay expectations, in terms of title, in terms of level of experience, and then price it based on that information. So they do the research to get that information. As far as for the employer, the reason why this is happening is because traditionally, whether it's been female candidates have, in terms of research, has shown that they're being paid less for certain jobs than male employees. And so this was a way that the government found they could change this whole process and equalize it in terms of candidates. That it's, again, what we've always talked about, you pay according to the job, not what somebody will take. And
Yeah.
it's very helpful because if somebody is coming from another position, just in terms of where that pay is, and they don't, like, for example, in Massachusetts, you no longer have to say what you're making in a role, because traditionally employers have said, oh, the application, what are you currently making? And then they'll base their offer or their negotiation as far as compensation based on what you're currently making and not what the job would pay.
Has that question now come into the realm of asking somebody's age, where it's illegal to ask what somebody was making, or is it that somebody doesn't have to disclose?
Well, first of all, you can't ask somebody their age.
Right, right, which is
You know,
illegal
as
to
far
do,
as
but
that, and as far as pay, you cannot, an employer cannot ask somebody what they're currently making. The prospective employee can volunteer that information in terms of what they're making, um, and often they do that, particularly in professional positions, because they may be making more than they're
the
asking
role
for,
is right.
or they may be making more in terms of the role than in terms of the total compensation. And so what the candidate can do is they can say, this is what I'm currently making, and this is the package I have. And so I don't want to waste anybody's time. And that way, the employer will have real information. But traditionally, you do not have to say what you're making. And your employers, prospective employers, are not allowed to ask. So it's pay transparency. You, again, pay according to the job, not what somebody will take. And they'll have a certain criteria as far as skill sets, experience, and level of experience that will be important in the role.
It's fascinating, and again, conceptually, I understand it and fully agree with it. But I think from a executional standpoint, it's incredibly fraught with challenges to have that because I could think of 100 different examples, but pick any job. Is a director of marketing in a company of 5 people, in a very complex technical environment, the same as a director of marketing in a consumer goods company with 1,000 people. And how do you without very large organizations have pay scales and pay grades and things of that nature. As we all know, entrepreneurial firms generally don't. You got to reach a certain scale until you have an HR person on board and until you start putting pay grades and pay scales in place. So I could see the execution being very challenging for small companies.
Well, there's still there's still gray area. So, for
Yeah,
example, somebody who runs a 5-person department and somebody who runs a 500-person department, that's different levels of experience. And
right.
you can price, it's like what employers do is they'll price the role based on the experience they're looking for and skill sets. So um, that's going to be, there's always going to be some gray area in terms of apples and oranges in terms of experience. But in terms of what the role is going to pay, there's a lot of different factors. Now candidates have a range, and also candidates are not betting against themselves by in terms of what they're currently making.
And
And
understood.
also, for example, somebody, just depending on the market, somebody might have taken a position at the time based on how the market was. And they might have accepted the offer and taken a lower base, and the market changes. And so the employer looks at in the old system, looks at, oh, this person was at the salary. Well, what if we offer them X? And now they should be happy because we've beaten what this role would be. But a lot of times that's not what the person signed up for, and there are different factors at bay which will determine what the salary will be and what the person would be qualified for.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting I guess an interesting development, and again, conceptually I understand what they're trying to do. I think the execution of it and certainly the enforcement of it is going to be incredibly challenging. And I think it's going to lend itself to a lot of headaches and challenges for employers along the way. I mean, this might be one of those other examples of government getting a little too involved in trying to regulate things in a free market economy, which, again, I understand trying to level the play field for employees as well. But I could see, a range at least allows you to make a determination of whether you want to dance. Then it comes down to negotiating which end of the range you're at, you know.
Right.
So it's a very interesting, at least the way I think of it, development. And as I said earlier, just thinking through how the actual implementation of this flows out may be very challenging, in particular for smaller companies.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, very,
Um,
it's very, it's a very different process today, and it
yeah.
adds a different ripple to the hiring process. But so far, it's um, it's been very beneficial to candidates
Sure.
who might not have had the opportunity to have a compensation level in the old system. And with the new system, they're qualified, they have the skills, they have the experience. And so now they can be paid what the right salary would be for the role, not with what they would take.
So again, this is done on a state by state basis, or is it done on a federal basis? What is the rollout, or is it one of these things that, classic is taking hold in certain parts of the country and we'll eventually see it roll out across the entire country?
You'll eventually see it roll off in terms of the entire country. But in big markets, that's what's developing. And that's what Massachusetts has done and other major states, and especially in major cities. And
Excellent. Well,
it's been working.
no, it's a fascinating concept, and totally understand the why. The how is, as we all know, the why is easy. The how is often much more challenging. So,
Right.
Mark, if people want to reach out, talk to you more about this or other opportunities in terms of recruiting and your insights into the employment marketplace, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, first of all, John, go on our wonderful Radio Entrepreneurs website, radioentrepreneurs.com. Google Marc Z, M-A-R-C, and the letter Z. marczlegal.com, marczlegal.com, and 617-338-1300.
Excellent. This has been another Marc Z Moment on Radio Entrepreneurs, and we'll be right
Thank
back
you.
with another segment on Radio Entrepreneurs.